Hello everyone and welcome back to One Fall Theory. Today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. It's something that I've wanted to do for a really long time, and I just haven't found the perfect way to do it. So today we're just going to dive right in, and what we're going to be doing is fantasy booking. That's right, every wrestling fan in the history has done this, but I'm going to show you exactly how I have killed many an hour entertaining myself and fantasy booking. So what I'm going to do is, in this video, I'm going to give you the setup of how I establish my fantasy booking, and then I'm going to show you exactly where I do my booking as well. So what I'm going to be doing today is using a game called Extreme Warfare Revenge, EWR. This is a text-based simulator game that was created by Adam Ryland. This version of the game came out in about 2003, I think, possibly 2004. But there are some fantastic people out there that do mods, and so it's really simple to update. So as you can see, I am on September 2023, so just a couple of weeks ago. I've gone back in time just to create a bit of context here, and I'll be working with AEW in this save. Now, as I've been playing this for a long time, and usually what I do is I will jump in and play with TNA normally. But my favourite thing to do is actually establish an old booking mentality. So I will look at storylines and characters and booking threads from the past and try to apply them to a modern context. So as I said, usually I will go with a WWF Attitude Era, for example, and try and apply that to a modern context for Impact Wrestling. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different though, and something slightly more challenging. I'm actually going to be trying to apply two different booking mentalities. I'm going to be applying WCW and WWF from 1997 to the current AEW context. So we'll see how we go. It's a little bit more challenging trying to manage both streams, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we're going to make that work. So before I give you a tour of EWR, for those of you that aren't familiar, what I usually do is I'll spend an hour or so setting up my booking structure and give myself a bit of a format to work from. So these never worked exactly perfectly. There's a bit of creative freedom here, but I'll show you what I do. So usually we establish a spreadsheet like the one you can see here on my screen, and I will try and assign the most appropriate modern day worker to the previous context that I'm trying to book. So as I said, this is 1997 for both WCW and WWF. You can also see I've got an ECW stream there down the center, and what I've done is try to apply the best fitting AEW wrestler to the past. So we'll start with our WCW roster. These aren't all perfect fits, but sometimes you find guys that are really applicable, and it does just make the game as you play forward that much more enjoyable. So I've ordered these, and there's a couple of different ways that I order the workers. Usually, on this version that you can see in front of you, this is ranking from the PWI 500 list from 1997, but I do also like to use cage match data, and I can see how many times a particular worker had matches that year. And for a promotion, that's another good way to go, because the more they worked that year, the more likely it is you're going to use the worker frequently, so you want to lock them into a written contract most of the time. So let's have a look here and see what you think of how they line up. If you've got people that you think are more applicable, I would love to hear from you in the comments section. So starting off from the PWI rankings for WCW, Dean Malenko. Now, WCW is going to be assigned to Dynamite here, and I've got Roderick Strong against Dean Malenko, Adam Page against DDP. I really like that one. I think Page could be a really good babyface. I think they're misusing him at the moment, and DDP at this time in WCW was sort of that standalone man, the lone cowboy, if you will. So we'll see how Adam Page goes in that setting. Lex Luger as Wardlow. The Giant's going to be Big Bill here. Now, this is where you know, in the opening weeks, sometimes you have to do a little bit of hot shotting to try and make it work, because if you download a current mod for AEW, obviously Big Bill is currently a heel, whereas the Giant would have been a babyface at this time in 1997, so we try and turn those. So the first few weeks there are a couple of turns and title changes that might not be as realistic, but it sets you up in the long run really well. Jushin Liger as Christopher Daniels, not a great fit there, but a veteran cruiserweight, so that's what my thinking there was. Jay White is Chris Benoit, solid worker that's going to develop into a main eventer. Commander and Ultimo Dragon, that's a tricky one, but we know that there's a lot of athleticism there for a lucha. Kevin Nash. Now, what I've done here is try to put those groups together. So obviously 1997 WCW, the main act was the NWO. So part of the NWO, I've got Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. They're FTR at the moment. Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler. And you will see just at the bottom of your screen, Hulk Hogan as CM Punk. So essentially I have CM FTR as my NWO on Dynamite. Pac is going to be, I've jumped ahead there. Jeff Jarrett as Jay Lethal, like that one. Part of the Four Horsemen at this time, just about breaking through. Solid worker in the ring and pretty good on the mic. Kenny Omega as Randy Savage. Pac as Six. Andrade as Eddie Guerrero. A perfect fit there. Excellent worker in the ring with that lucha style, but can work with anybody. Sammy Guevara as Chris Jericho. Young, cocky, cruiserweight style competitor. The Steiners are going to be represented by the Guns in this save. Rey Fenix as Rey Mysterio. Chris Jericho, the now wily veteran, will be taking on the role of Ric Flair throughout this save. Roosh as Juventud Guerrera. Psychosis as Bandito. Adam Copeland for Roddy Piper. So he's going to be taking on that commissioner role as that save progresses. Sting, now this was a really tricky one. Sting obviously doesn't work a whole lot through 1997, but he is frequently on the show. And that kind of is where Malachi Black is at the moment. We've seen him a lot in trios on Collision recently, but I think he could really be doing a lot more. So him taking a step back and sort of having that Crow character development where he is an observer of what CM Punk and FTR are doing and sort of rebelling against what's happening, just coming in at those crucial moments to thwart CM Punk's dominance. I think Malachi Black, could play that really, really well. And I'm not going to go through all of these because it will take us forever, but as you can see, as best as I can, I've matched up people. Booker T as Swerve Strickland was one that I really liked. And on we go. Down at the bottom of my list here, I've also got the female employees at the time, so I've assigned some of those female wrestlers. This is where some of the creative freedom comes into play, because obviously in 1997 there weren't a whole lot of female matches happening on either Nitro or Raw, so we've got a little bit of scope here. I often replace things that happened in 1997, like the minis matches, with the women's contest for today. So we'll see how that plays out. And then our broadcast team, we're going to stick with Taz, Excalibur, and Tony Schiavone for the most part. I've assigned Nigel McGuinness as Eric Bischoff in this save. And JJ Dillon, representing one of those presidents in WCW at the time, I've assigned to Sting. Now let's jump on over to the WWF side of things. Again, becomes very, very tricky when we're talking about really unique characters. But I think this works quite well. So the WWF Raw has been assigned to Collision. And I'll say here, what I'm thinking we'll do is, as the save progresses, we are going to assign the AEW Championships to Dynamite. And we're actually going to make Collision a Ring of Honor branded show. So we'll have AEW Dynamite and Ring of Honor Collision. That's what I'm thinking at the moment. And the Ring of Honor titles will be assigned to Collision. So, with that said, Steve Austin is going to be Jon Moxley in this save. Not a huge Jon Moxley fan personally, but I think he could, with the right writing and guidance, like we saw really in 2016 in the WWE, take on that Steve Austin role. The Undertaker is Claudio Castagnoli. I'm not sure about this one, but my thinking was that I know that Claudio's an incredible worker, got great size and legitimacy. Taker at this time wasn't doing a huge amount of promos, so we could easily put a manager with Claudio to make that work. The Hart Foundation at this time is a huge angle, so Bryan Danielson as Bret Hart I think works beautifully, and really, really happy with that assignment. But I have switched around his faction, I suppose, his allegiances. So we're going to have Buddy Matthews as Owen Hart, and we're going to have Brody King as Davey Boy Smith. So we've got a pretty good Hart Foundation there, I think. MGF is Shawn Michaels. I like that one. Brash, cocky, arrogant. Michaels, you know, has one of the strongest heel runs of his career at the end of 1997, and MJF certainly has the charisma to pull that off. And it also ties in quite well with Adam Cole as Triple H. So Adam Cole will play second fiddle a little bit to MJF throughout the first year of this save, and we'll see how that relationship develops. Pretty similar to what's going on in real life at the moment. Hopefully just a little bit more entertaining than what's happening on Dynamite and Collision. And again, not going to go through the whole roster, but you can see there are some people here that match up perfectly, some not so much. So O'Reilly as Shamrock I like, Robinson as Goldust. I've also paired him with Toni Storm, his real-life wife, who will take on that Marlena role. Powerhouse Hobbs as Farouk, Samoa Joe as Vader, Christian Cage as Jerry Lawler, and we're also going to be putting him on commentary. And then there's some more tricky ones as well. So Mankind, a pretty unique character to try and replicate, but Eddie Kingston carries a lot of charisma. He's willing to take those risks inside the ring as well. The only blocker here really was his age, but again, you've got the benefit of hindsight. So Mankind doesn't work full-time for many more years after 1997, so Eddie Kingston at 41 is not too bad in terms of fitting here. And as we go down, you can see where I've tried to map out what the title assignment will be. And we're going to be using the TNT title as the United States title, the Pure title as the Intercontinental title, and so on. You can see the WWF females here as well. Britt Baker will also be partnered up with Adam Cole, that Triple H China dynamic, forming DX. Not sure what we'll call that group just yet, but I mean, Better Than You works pretty well, so we might go with that. Broadcast team, we're going to stick with Jim Ross. We got the benefit of JR and the Attitude Era voice on our team. Jeff Jarrett will be taking on the role of Vince McMahon with Karen as Linda, and we're going to be putting Paul White, the Big Show, as Sergeant Slaughter in that commissioner role. So, as I said, there's a little bit of hot shotting involved, which is probably what you can see on my screen at the moment. I try to map out what those first few shows might look like. Where I'm going to jump into our save is actually around WrestleMania season. So WrestleMania 13 happened in March of 1997, which is the booking that I'm going to be trying to replicate moving forward. So, without further ado, let's jump into our game. For those of you that aren't familiar with EWR, there are lots of things to explore here, and I'm not going to have enough time in just one video to show you everything. But some of the basics before you get started is you're going to want to jump into this tab here and make sure that you've locked in your sponsors first of all. This is really, really key to for your funds to stay up. These sponsors will pay you for every show that you produce, so you really need to keep an eye on your money there. You can see your starting public image, how much you want to be spending on merchandising, advertising, and production value. AEWs are pretty good here. I've actually reduced these to try and match that national level setting because they were a little bit higher. And then there's lots of other things that you want to be able to check. Going into your meeting tab is really important. Your assistant Sophie will give you some heads up. For example, you might need to hire a lot more writers. AEW has a lot of TV, so we need to hire some writers straight off the bat. And they'll also give you some updates here. I've got Edge joining me in one at a time. My Roddy Piper on the Dynamite side of things. You can go to your writing staff and they'll tell you if there are any gimmicks that aren't really working at the moment, or if you're pushing someone too heavily. Again, that's a good thing to really sort out before you get started. And you can keep going here. Your scouting department tells you who's free or will be soon available. And unhappy workers. At the start, no one's unhappy, but people's morale do drop fairly quickly. And if you hire people that aren't friends, if you fire anyone that is in a love relationship or a friendship relationship, then the morale drops. And once they get to around that 30% mark, it's pretty difficult to bring them back. And then we can jump into our roster page. So I've sort of already gone in the spreadsheet through the roster assignment. I'm using everyone that's currently available from AEW. I have already gone through here and released quite a few workers that were on open contracts that I just won't be using in the save. But that really is up to you. They don't cost you any money until you book them on the show. Whereas written contract performers, you're going to pay that amount every month. So as I said, we're not going to go through all of this in this opening video because I'll show you a little bit more as we start posting more and producing shows. The only other things that I'll show you probably in this video is that we've got our world, our championship assignments here. So our AEW champions, I've just dropped, as I said, in a hot shot-in show really, which was all out in this circumstance. Happened on September 3rd, which I can show you here. I had to do a bit of hot shotting just to get the championships aligned with that March 1997. So Punk beat MJF for the world title, FTR retained, Andrade became the TNT champion, Jack Perry retains the FTW championship. That's probably one thing that I didn't say here. With leftover workers, what I've done is I've actually tried to assign them as best I can to Rampage, and that's going to work a little bit like ECW, I think. We don't have a full roster for ECW at the moment, but the FTW championship will be assigned to Rampage, and that will work a little bit like ECW. The caveat there is, on this game, you can only book one pay-per-view a month, and obviously I'm trying to produce 2. So once out of every 4 of these Rampage shows is going to be turned into a pay-per-view, and I'll try and alternate those as we go. So we'll see how that works out as well. Lance Archer became the Ring of Honor World Champion. Ricky Starks won the Pure Championship on the Ring of Honor side. Hikaru Shida won the Women's Championship. Pac beat Orange Cassidy for the International Championship. And I put the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions on Buddy Matthews and Brody King. So that gets us pretty close to who our reigning champions were in March of 1997. Lance Archer is Psycho Sid as a world champion at the moment. Ricky Starks as The Rock is the Pure Champion at the moment. Brody King is our television champion. That would be Davey Boy Smith just winning the Euros. And then our World Tag Team Champions are Matthews and King. So that's the Ring of Honor Collision side of things there. For AEW Dynamite, we've got Punk as the World Champion. We've got Andrade as the TNT Champion. We have got Pac as the International Champion, which will be equivalent to our Cruiserweight title from WCW. Hikaru Shida as the Women's Champion. And FTR as the Tag Champions. So that's about it. As I said, I've started to book here, but what I'm going to do is post videos from WrestleMania onwards. So each booking week I'll provide hopefully a video update for you. If you've got any better suggestions for me, if I've got workers in this list that you think maybe match up to a better representative from 1997, then please do let me know in the comments. And if you would like a bit more of a tour of the EWR and you're not that familiar with it, then let me know as well. Because there's plenty here to explore. But for now, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, this has been One Fall Theory, where we smarten up and smack down.